Hey guys, Will here. So believe it or not, we are at the end of Q1 for 2025, which absolutely blows my mind. And I thought it was about time I did a bit of a channel update for you guys because we've had a lot of really exciting things happen recently. A lot of things going on behind the scenes over the last 12 months though that I haven't really had the opportunity to talk about because we've just been so flat out with everything. But yeah, it's time to update you guys. You probably noticed that the content schedule has dropped off a little bit over the last couple of months as well. So I wanted to explain the reasons why that has happened, what we're going to be doing moving forward. And yeah, there's basically just a lot of stuff to go through today. And of course, I want to tell you all about the new addition to the studio as well. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff to cover in today's video. Let's jump in. Okay, so I wanted to start this out by talking about the thing that's probably been taking up the most of our time recently. So that is our website, boostedmedia.net. Now, we've been putting a lot of time and effort into this, particularly Tom's been spending a lot of time behind the scenes on this recently. We've actually just in the last week moved everything over to a new server and hosting structure. You guys might have seen in the past when we've had big events happening like big product launches or Black Friday, occasionally the website's gone down or got really slow and just not been a fantastic experience. Now, as part of that as well, I've invested a lot in Tom's time to do a lot of upgrades to the website behind the scenes too. Now, we will actually be giving the website a complete overhaul over the next sort of 12 months. So you'll be seeing sort of incremental changes there. And at some point, the theme will probably change as well. But what we've been doing behind the scenes is really sort of building out a lot of the content and a lot of the, I guess, the features on the website to give you guys a better experience. And one of the really big things that we've done is create some discount trackers. Now, in the past, what we've had to do is we've had to kind of keep our fingers on the pulse and, you know, be aware when a new product launches or a price has dropped or anything like that. And then, you know, update the website quickly, put a post up letting you guys know that that's happened as well. And often, you know, if we're asleep, unfortunately being in Australia, it does make things really difficult because things often will happen at like 2 or 3 in the morning for us. And we'll wake up to, you know, the whole landscape having changed while we were asleep. So what the website's able to do now is actually detect changes on a lot of the manufacturers' websites and then give you guys the latest information based on that. So we've got live discount trackers for a lot of the brands now. We will be integrating more of those over time. So basically what that means is you go on the page, and I'll obviously drop links down in the description box below for you guys, or you can just go over to boostedmedia.net. But you'll hit those pages and they'll give you a list of all the current discounts or bundle deals that are available for that particular brand, and then cross-link those products to our reviews as well. So obviously there are a lot of discount websites and things like that out there already. The point of difference there, or the value for you guys, is that we're able to provide that link through to our review of the product as well, comparisons against other products too, so that you're able to get the information that you need to obviously make sure that you're buying the right product for you, rather than just making an impulsive choice of a product based on a discount or something like that. So that's really what we're trying to sort of use the body of content that we've built over the last 6 or 7 years that we've been doing sim racing stuff to really sort of try to provide that value to you in a way that's easily accessible and you know, is able to assist you right at the point that you're trying to make a decision, rather than kind of have to dig around for it so much. So you'll find that if you just jump on Google and search for discounts or reviews or anything like that, hopefully you'll come across our content and it'll be able to help you out. Now, one of the things that you guys haven't heard me talk about for a very long time is our Discord server. Now, we've got a 10,000 member strong community over on Discord that is a fantastic place to hang out, chat about sim racing, chat about cars, chat about pretty much anything. So you'll find a lot of community support there, a lot of technical support as well. If you're having a problem, there's always somebody there that can help you out. I try to jump on there as often as I possibly can. But one of the things that we've added on Discord that we're really excited about is a live product update tracker. Now, not only will that let you know if there's a new discount for a product, but also when new products are launched, when new bundles are available, when a product comes back in stock, anything like that, it's going to let you know if you sign up for notifications to those channels. And yeah, basically just ping you whenever there's an update that you might be interested in. So we're hoping that will be a really powerful way to help our community to not miss out on new things. Part of the technology landscape these days, and we saw it recently with the 50 series graphics card launches from NVIDIA and so forth. Really hard to get your hands on products these days at a reasonable price. They go out of stock, then you end up dealing with scalpers and all that kind of thing. So we're trying to help you guys in our community avoid that kind of thing wherever we possibly can. So we've invested a lot of time and effort into all that stuff, and that has pulled us away from video content a little bit over the last couple of months. But we're sort of on the tail end of that now. We've got all the systems in place. We can just build those episodes out, bring in other brands and so forth. So you will be seeing some incremental changes to the website over time, but definitely if you haven't looked at our website for quite some time, check it out. It used to be very much just sort of like an SEO tool where we would post our videos and a quick description, and that was pretty much it. But there's a lot more functionality there now than there used to be. Now, another really, really exciting thing that I'm really happy to announce is that, and it's actually been going on behind the scenes for quite some time now, we actually brought a qualified pilot into our team, Sean, who lives up north. And yeah, we've been working with him for almost a year now behind the scenes, and he's been building a whole lot of written content around flight sim products. Now, over the next 6 to 12 months, we are planning on starting to bring in some video content for him as well. And basically, this is going to be his baby. So I'll introduce him to you guys in a separate video a little bit later on. But he's a guy that I've known for quite a long time. He used to stream on Twitch, absolutely amazing streamer, and he just fits into our culture here at Boosted Media exceptionally well. I knew that he was going to be the guy for the job the first time I met him, and yeah, it certainly has proven to be the case. So we're building a studio for him in his house as well. It probably won't be quite as elaborate as what we have here, of course, but we're hoping to sort of, try to produce content there that's of at least a similar kind of production value to what we do here, at least within the limitations that we have, and obviously building that up over time as well. But yeah, really excited to sort of move in that direction too. But we've been very strategic in how we've done it. It's not something that's going to pull Tom and I away from the sim racing. Something that I'm very acutely aware of is not spreading myself too thin. I think that's something that I have been guilty of in the past, and we'll talk about that a little bit further on in today's video too. But this is very much going to be Sean's baby. He's going to be taking care of it. Yeah, it's all going to be his expertise, and I think he's going to do an absolutely amazing job. So there's already a whole bunch of flight sim reviews. If you head over to boostedmedia.net, there's a link up the top there, or in the drop-down menu if you're on mobile for flight. You click on that and you can see a whole bunch of written articles. And yeah, we will be transitioning and starting to do some video stuff there as well very soon too. So we will circle back a little bit later on in today's video and talk about our approach to reviews in a little bit more detail too, because we will be integrating the website into that a little bit more too, to make sure that we can cover as many products as we possibly can. But yeah, we'll come back to that a little bit later on. So yeah, lots of really exciting stuff there. I've been itching to tell you guys about all these things that we've been doing for a long time now. I've sort of wanted to keep it under wraps until it was a little bit more, come to fruition. But yeah, I felt like now was the time, and I'm again aware that the content schedule has dropped off a little bit recently. So I wanted to let you guys know that we aren't dropping the ball. We've just had a lot of things going on in the background recently. Yeah. So what I want to do next is talk you through some of the things that we've changed in the studio. Obviously, we'll talk about the car in a minute as well. But yeah, look, we've had a couple of changes over the last 6 months since we did the last update video that have brought high production value to our videos. You guys have hopefully noticed a difference. It's been relatively subtle, but a couple of camera upgrades, a couple of upgrades to the rig and all that kind of things. So let's run through that quickly now, and then we'll come back, talk about the car, and talk about some other stuff as well. So first big thing that we did was we upgraded our cameras. So previously we were running Sony A7 Mark IIIs, and they actually served us really well, but one of the main limitation that we had there is if we wanted to film in 4K, it meant that we were limited to 30 frames per second. So that meant that the content did feel quite choppy at times. Now, probably about 8-9 months ago now, we made the investment of a Sony A7S Mark III, and we started using that as our main camera. Those of you who've seen our review videos, which I assume is probably all of you if you're watching this video, you would have noticed the upgrade in quality for the main A camera, which is the camera that's on my face when I'm doing a review video. And we were still using the A7 Mark III as our B camera, which is the one that Tom uses to zoom in on what I'm doing on the table, to sort of give you that A/B kind of camera style that works really well, I think, at least. But we were still using the A7 there, and what that meant was that when we switched to the B camera, it was dropping down to 30 frames per second. Now, we could interpolate in post-production, but it just was quite a stark jump in quality between the two cameras, we noticed. So we decided to make the investment of a second A7S Mark III camera with a couple of new lenses as well. And that has really, I was amazed at how much difference it made in terms of the visual quality and just how fluid the videos look and everything. So hopefully you guys have noticed the difference as well. It is relatively subtle, but if you go back and watch a video from a year ago, you'll definitely notice that difference. So that was quite a big investment in terms of, infrastructure. The rig is pretty much the same as it was in the last update video, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time there. Only things that we've really changed is my daily driver wheel at the moment is the Gomez Myers FPE V2 wheel. I did a review video of that wheel just recently. Absolutely love that wheel. It's just absolutely perfect for me. I wouldn't say it's the absolute perfect sim racing wheel, but for me, it just ticks all of those boxes. We added the Cubic Systems belt tensioner system on there as well, which if you saw my review of that, was very, very positive. Absolutely love this thing. It definitely, it brings a new level of immersion to sim racing. They're not cheap, but considering what you're getting for the money, I think they are actually pretty good value. So definitely check out our full review of the Cubic Systems belt tensioner system if you haven't already seen it. Now, the other recent thing as well, you guys would have seen, we've been doing a bit of 5090 content just recently. We finally managed to get our hands on our own 5090 graphics card. Now, I decided to go for the Astral 5090 OC from ASUS, simply because, and I was glad that I waited a little while and, you know, sort of saw what was going on. If you've been following the news around 5090s at all, you would have seen they had been having issues with melting connectors, just like what we saw on the 4090 previously, and actually happened to me. The whole issue is kind of exacerbated even further because these new 5090s are drawing even more power than the 4090s did, significantly more over the same connection. So I won't go into all the details on this. Linus Tech Tips, Jay's 2 Cents, and DeBauer have all done really detailed videos on this. There's plenty of articles online as well. But basically, the NVIDIA design doesn't allow for load balancing across the individual pins on the power connector. So what happens is if you've got a loose connection or maybe just a connection that isn't quite mated perfectly, what happens is that goes high resistance, heats up, the current drops on that particular pin, and then the other pins end up taking up the load, and you end up in this essentially like a thermal runaway situation where the hotter it gets, the higher resistance it gets, the hotter it gets still, and you end up with a melted connector. And that's, to my understanding at least, is something that's basically just imposed on all the third-party partners that produce other versions of the 5090, simply because they have to use NVIDIA's reference design at least to a certain point. So what ASUS have done, and I believe this is unique to ASUS, is they've actually, even though they can't load balance, they've got a monitor on each of the pins, and I'll overlay some footage for you now. But when I plugged this in, I actually did find that one of the pins was carrying way too much load, and it actually would have melted if their software hadn't set off an alarm and alerted me to the fact that one of the pins was carrying too much current. So yeah, definitely glad that I went down that path. These cards definitely aren't cheap. And look, the last thing I'm going to do is say everybody should rush out and buy a 50 series or particularly a 5090. But when you're running triple 4K displays like what we are here, you know, it's an investment in the quality of the content that we put out on the channel. It's as simple as that. So I hope that you guys aren't sort of thinking that I'm, you know, pushing the 5090 as the solution to everybody's problems. It's certainly not the case. But yeah, in our particular case, it makes sense to make that financial investment. I did pay retail for the card. You know, it wasn't sent to me or anything like that. Big thank you to Scorp Tech here in Australia for, you know, helping me actually source one of these, but I did pay retail for the cards. So yeah, just so you're aware of that. But look, other than that, a lot of the upgrades that we've done recently have been in terms of sort of quality of life, you know, both in terms of the quality of the content as well as just trying to make things easier for us here in the studio in terms of workflow. One of the really big things that's happened is we upgraded our internet. So you'll remember originally we had an NBN connection here and we are out in the sticks. So our internet connection was really slow. So I actually have a 5G antenna up on my roof that we were using when we needed to transfer big files. We've been upgraded to a dedicated fiber connection now to the house. So that means that we're able to get 1,000 megabits down and 400 megabits up, which is perfect for us. What that means in terms of our workflow is that, you know, previously, you know, 5G wasn't working properly, which was quite often. You know, a video might take us literally 6 hours to upload. So if there was a tight deadline, like a product embargo or something like that, you know, we'd have to make sure we had the video finished 6 hours before it was ready to go live. Otherwise, it wouldn't have enough time to upload. And then if we found a last minute error or a correction or something, you know, we might actually miss the product launch just because of the upload speed. So it was a really big problem for us. So we invested quite heavily in that whole upgrade. As part of that as well, we did upgrade our network infrastructure too. So we're running an ASUS ROG Rapture, what is it, a GTBE98 is the model, and that's Wi-Fi 7 capable, and yeah, basically that's plugged in upstairs in our server cabinet, and yeah, it runs the primary connection, takes the modem connection in and everything, and then we've got a secondary router which is sitting just behind me here downstairs. We've got a steel basically roof down in our studio here, so the Wi-Fi connection doesn't go through. So that allows us to have a continuous network throughout the entire premises. We can move around outside and have Wi-Fi all the time, which has worked brilliantly for us. But the big thing that's been chewing up a lot of my time recently is we're actually building an external facility for all of our storage off-site. Now, you'll remember a couple of years ago, we actually rented an entire house just to use as a sim racing studio, basically. And then we moved to this place so that rather than renting something, that money was going towards a mortgage rather than, a rental, which just kind of made sense. We've got an amazing space here, which I'm extremely thankful for. But one of the big problems that we have is just the amount of storage that's required here. We're always sort of having to move boxes around, try and find things, and it gets very, very messy. I'd say, on an average day, if we're filming for 8 hours, probably spend at least an hour and a half of that, maybe 2 hours, just sort of shuffling stuff around, which is a pretty big waste of time and very inefficient. So having that external storage is going to be a big help. We might be able to do some car related stuff in there as well, which will be really cool. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it'll end up being used, storage aside, but very excited to make that happen. We've had all sorts of hoops we had to jump through with council approval and all that, red tape related stuff. So that's been chewing a crazy amount of my time over the last couple of months. And that's part of the reason why the content hasn't been as frequent recently, because I've just been spending so much time sorting all of that stuff out. But yeah, I think it's probably time we talked about the new car. So come over, sit down, and let's have a bit of a chat about it, why we bought it, and yeah, have a chat. Okay, so this is not something that I ever thought I would be able to say, but this is mine, or our, I should say, Ferrari 488 GTB. Now, there's a couple of reasons why we bought this, why we have this here. So being a 90s kid, like most other boys, my dream car was a Ferrari F40. Now, obviously an F40 is completely out of the question. In Australia, they're about $4.5 million to buy one at this point. But those of you who've been watching the channel for a very long time might remember 9 years ago, almost to the day, I was working at a car museum. And my role there was basically marketing manager. And I got to drive and spend time in a lot of very, very special cars, including things like LaFerrari F40, F50, Enzo, all kinds of things. And that whole thing ended very abruptly for reasons I won't go into in this video, but it really was, I thought that I had my dream job. I put everything into that job. I completely let it consume my life. And then in an instant, it was just gone. And that whole experience basically lit the fire under me, which I needed to sort of go out on my own, believe in myself, and, start this. I was already doing the channel, but, really take this seriously as something that I could build into a sustainable business over time. So that is a big part of the reason why this has kind of happened. But a big part of my motivation in doing this was to one day hopefully be able to, make something like this happen. Now, obviously, the main part of the motivation for the channel has always been to, to help people and to, support my family, anybody else involved with the channel's families as well. But in the back of my mind has always been that drive, that passion, that desire to, I guess, get back what was taken away from me, although obviously none of them were my cars, so it's very different. But yeah, look, I mean, that's just been part of the reason why I've been so driven and, never taken no for an answer. Now, one of the big mistakes that I've made over the years is giving too much of myself to things like that. And, you guys have seen over the last 5 years or so, I put on a lot of weight. I used to be quite skinny back before the pandemic and everything. And, a lot of bad lifestyle habits came around that time, around the pandemic and everything. And look, I mean, basically the pandemic was this massive opportunity for content creators in a lot of different niches, but particularly in sim racing to, there was a massive amount of attention, massive amount of growth around that time. And my mentality was just growth at all costs during that time. So I made a lot of sacrifice in terms of, the time I was spending with my kids when they were really young, time with my wife. And basically I thought this opportunity is never going to come around again. So I've got to make the absolute most of it now so that it can hopefully be something that's sustainable into the future and can support us. And, I never, ever, ever expected that, it would get to the point where, something like this could happen. So honestly, it still doesn't seem real to me. Like, we picked the car up on Monday. It's now Friday when we're filming this. And, the whole time I just felt numb inside because it just didn't seem real. And, a big part of that is my anxiety, which I'll get into in just a minute as well. So, I've been thinking about this a lot over the last year or so, Really loved the Emira. There was nothing wrong with that car. You know, it was a great car, but the value of that car was just going down and down and down and down and down for various reasons. And, you know, I was looking at these and I realized that they're, you know, at the moment they're at the bottom of their depreciation curve, or very close to. You know, they're a lot cheaper than they were new. Obviously, buying something like this brand new, you drive out of the dealership and you're losing 20%, you know, straight away. Ferrari or any other supercar manufacturer aren't making cars like this anymore. You know, this is a twin turbo V8. You know, a lot of people prefer the 458, which is a naturally aspirated V8, but I actually really enjoy that surge of turbo power. I love the, you know, the turbo noises and everything, and I'll show you guys all that in another video later on. I'm sure we'll be spending a bit of time in this car. Let me know what you'd like to see in the comments down below as well. But, you know, this car's always kind of been the dream car for me since it was originally released. And, you know, I was looking into all the numbers and everything, and I thought, well, you know, there's never going to be another car like this. So I can see the value of it going up over time. You know, the opportunity to actually enjoy and drive cars like this is probably going to disappear over time as well. You know, like I said, you can't buy anything new like this anymore. Everything's, you know, hybrid V6s now. And, you know, as good as those cars are, they're just not the same as, you know, a proper V8 turbo kind of setup. So I kind of was thinking, well, you know, if it's ever going to happen, the time is now. But look, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys and make myself quite vulnerable here. It's a scary thing to do, but, you know, it's something that I've always believed in with this channel. And, you know, one of the things that I've shared a lot over the years, not as much as I wish I had over recent years, but, you know, my journey with anxiety and depression. And the more success that this channel's had, the more that it's, you know, seemed from the outside like I was living the dream, the harder I've found it to be to talk about these kinds of things. Because, look, to be honest with you guys, I have a certain level of guilt that I live with all the time for, you know, having found success through, you know, what I do. There's so many people that make amazing content or have amazing businesses that they pour just as much effort as I do and Tom does into this channel, and they never have anywhere near the success that we've been able to have. So, you know, I do consider myself very lucky, and I guess to an extent undeserving of, you know, the success that we've been able to have here. And like, that's certainly not to say that I'm not aware that, you know, I've worked very hard towards it, but, you know, I'm aware at the same time that there are a lot of people that have put in just as much effort as me, and, you know, through the pandemic situation in particular, have lost their businesses. You know, that was a time for us that was, you know, crazy growth, as I was talking about before. And, you know, there is a lot of guilt that surrounds that, and, you know, I can't pretend that that's not a thing. And look, I mean, honestly, the struggles that I've had over the last 12 months in particular, I've really struggled to share that both on camera with you guys as well as just, you know, within my friendship circles. I don't have a lot of real life face-to-face friends these days, simply because I feel like I'm in such a different, you know, situation to a lot of people, that I feel guilty talking about my struggles and the things that I'm dealing with day to day, because everybody's situation is their own. And, you know, I have a bad day sometimes, I have a frustrating day, things go wrong, I get angry like any other normal person. And what I've had to accept is that your situation and the way your situation is perceived by other people doesn't invalidate those day-to-day feelings that you have, you know, just living life in general. You know, I'm still going to get upset. I'm still going to feel those emotions just like any other person would, regardless of, you know, the wider situation, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So I've really struggled to share things with people over the last 12 months in particular. And, you know, again, it's an awkward thing to say because it feels kind of tone deaf, but the last 12 months have been really difficult for me. There was a lot of drama last year in the sim racing space. And look, I'll just be completely honest with you. Last year, I was waking up pretty much every morning in a full-scale panic attack, you know, wondering what was going on overnight, what I'd missed, what people were saying about me online, and, you know, just allowing those things to completely overwhelm me to the point where a lot of days I would wake up and I would literally struggle to get out of bed. And, you know, you guys didn't see any of that stuff because, you know, we're pumping out content. And, you know, I've been saying for a lot of years now when I've made these update videos, oh, I really need to focus on my health and everything. And, you know, you guys haven't really seen a change. I'm still overweight. And, you know, that's simply just because I've just been working to the point of complete burnout. And, you know, a couple of years ago now, I ended up with that really bad cellulitis in my leg that I talked about on the channel. And, you know, that should have been the wake-up call that I needed. And I said at the time that it was. But, you know, again, things have just slipped away. I felt the pressure that I put on myself and, you know, just pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and just I guess just the underlying motivation is that I just want to please everybody. I want to make everybody happy. I want to try and, you know, do what everybody is expecting of me to do. And it's just gotten to the point where it's just completely unsustainable. And this kind of ties back into what we were talking about before with the website and everything. It's gotten to the point with everything now where, you know, when I first started doing this on my own, before Tom was part of the team, there was only a couple of major brands in sim racing, and it was relatively easy to cover all of the major products that were being released. Around the pandemic, again, there were a whole bunch of new brands that exploded onto the scene, everybody trying to sort of, you know, make, you know, benefit of that situation. And it's gotten to the stage now where there's so many amazing products, so many awesome things being released all the time. It is literally impossible to cover absolutely everything. So the only way, at least in the kind of style of videos that we do, because it takes us a week at least to produce a proper review video. And that's not including the time it takes to test those products properly and, you know, form a proper valid opinion and, you know, test objectively the products as well. So, you know, all that stuff takes time. And that's something that I've never been willing to compromise on. So, you know, I felt a lot of pressure from the pressure that I put on myself, as well as, you know, pressure from manufacturers and so forth to, you know, review as much stuff as I possibly can, whilst not wanting to cross that line into just pumping out content without, you know, properly testing it before, you know, sharing with you guys. So what I've realized is that my best is never going to be good enough in the current landscape. I can't pump out content fast enough without making those kinds of compromises. So what we're aiming to do is, you know, use the website as a means that we can, you know, start to do some written reviews and some other styles of content which we'll publish there to cover the more bespoke kind of stuff, the stuff that doesn't quite have the same level of mainstream interest, and then reserve the videos for things that I think are going to be most interesting for you guys. And that's the way we're going to try and manage things moving forward. And that's going to help me a lot in terms of my mental health as well. And look, the passion for sim racing has never gone anywhere. That's always been there. You know, the passion for testing out new products, sharing the experience with you guys, you know, that's always been there. But just that the underlying feelings of guilt and, you know, just general not being able to please everybody has been overwhelming to the point that I've, you know, been feeling burnt out and been feeling very anxious and demotivated. And again, like it feels weird to say, because I know, you know, most people that are struggling with these kinds of things can't just go out and buy a Ferrari to make themselves feel better. But look, I thought that having something physical that reminded me every day when I'm in this environment of what I'm capable of was going to be a massive motivator for me, just like it has been before. You know, I really struggle with a lot of feelings of self-doubt as a result of my anxiety. And every day walking down here, seeing this thing reminds me of what I'm capable of and keeps me motivated to keep pushing myself and, you know, break down those barriers, push through those, you know, those limitations that I put on myself. But also something to remind me that there's more to life than material things as well. Because when you own something like this, and it's already starting to happen, the novelty does wear off. You know, obviously the experience of picking up something like this is incredible. But at the end of the day, it is a car. You know, a couple of times I've caught myself, even already, you know, we've only had it for 5 days. I'll walk downstairs, grab something from the desk and not even look at it, which just seems crazy to me. But it is amazing how quickly you become desensitized to those kinds of things. And I think that that's an important reminder for me as well. But yeah, look, I mean, it's been a real journey the last 12 months. And another thing that I've done as well is gone back on anxiety medication. I had always prided myself on the fact that I had actually been able to get off it a long time ago, because I know that's something that a lot of people are never able to achieve. But I realized that, you know, I was allowing the stresses with work and everything to get on top of me. You know, and I was starting to take, I mean, not starting to, but I was taking that out on my kids, taking it out on my wife, and, you know, just, I had a really short fuse and I was making everybody around me feel like they were treading on eggshells all the time. And, you know, going back on that medication, although it hasn't really helped with my baseline anxiety levels, they are still there. What it has done is it's made me a lot more patient of a person. It's made me less likely to sort of, you know, get angry and frustrated when things go wrong. And I think it's probably made me a lot better to be around for Tom in the studio as well, but definitely for my family. Well, Tom is my family because he's my brother, but definitely for, you know, my family that lives with me here. You know, I'm a lot calmer, and I'm already starting to see the impact of that, you know, on my kids' behavior and everything as well. So yeah, look, I mean, this was just part of what I felt like I needed to do to sort of try and get myself back on track and, you know, have a bit of a reset, really sort of reevaluate what's most important. So, you know, part of it was to remind myself of what I am capable of when I set my mind to it. And that's something that I just needed. But also something to remind me that, you know, at the end of the day, this kind of stuff isn't what's important. It's your family, it's your loved ones, it's your relationships and all those things. So this is going to be a, you know, a physical reminder of all of that as well. And I think that, you know, I'm in a much better place mentally now than I was, you know, 6 months ago. And you know, there are a lot of changes that we needed to make, you know, both in terms of the workload and the expectations that I put on myself, for Tom as well. You know, we're spending a lot more time trying to do things that are going to, you know, hopefully give as much value to you guys as possible, but in different ways that allow us to, you know, scale up without completely burning ourselves out and, you know, cover more stuff. And yeah, basically, I'm learning as I'm going here. You know, I never expected Boosted Media to become as big as it is. I don't have any experience running a business or anything like that. Thankfully, I've had a lot of exposure to, you know, various different corporations and the corporate world over the years. So, you know, I've sort of tried to be like a sponge in those environments and learn as much as I possibly can. But yeah, that's what's going on. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. I hope it doesn't seem too tone deaf or anything like that. I know that, you know, like I said before, not everybody can go out and buy a Ferrari to make themselves feel better. And I'm certainly not expecting anybody to feel sorry for me or anything like that. That's been one of the big struggles, honestly, is, you know, some days feeling sorry for myself and feeling guilty for feeling that way when obviously, you know, I'm very privileged to be in the position that I am. And yeah, that comes with all sorts of sort of polarizing feelings that are very difficult to navigate. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. You know, hopefully this is somewhat inspiring for some of you as well. You know, there's nothing special about me. You know, I'm just a guy with a camera that's, you know, has a lot of experience talking about products, a lot of experience with products. Yeah, there's no reason anybody else can't, you know, whatever your goal is, whether it's something like this or, you know, whatever it is, there's no reason you can't do it. You know, I'm living proof of that, but at the same time, you know, it's not going to bring you ultimate joy. At the end of the day, what's important is family, relationships, and all those things. And yeah, that's what I've learned over the last 6 months, and particularly in the last week since this becoming a reality as well. It really has been a bit of a reality check for me. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I don't even know how long this video is going to be. You know, I'm sure a lot of people have already clicked off, and that's absolutely fine. But apparently a lot of people do sort of look at what I'm doing and find a lot of inspiration in that, which is very humbling. But yeah, I hope that I can use the success that we've had here to leave a positive mark on the world and hopefully help people out. You know, that's always been the goal here, to help people. You know, we've been very lucky, but, you know, the more I can do to sort of, you know, help you guys out, whatever it is, whether it's sim racing or, you know, anything like this, the more transparent I am, hopefully the more you guys can take inspiration and, you know, hopefully help you guys out as well. So I'll leave it at that for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Lots of exciting stuff coming up. As I said, we'll introduce you guys to Sean, our flight sim guy, very soon as well. But for now, I'll jump over to boostedmedia.net and click on the flight section to check out the flight sim reviews that are up there at the moment. We will have some video content hopefully coming in the pipeline there very soon as well. But yeah, lots of exciting things happening in the future with the, you know, the external storage, and yeah, it's going to free us up to be a lot more efficient hopefully as well. And yeah, with the focus changing on, you know, how we're going to produce content and videos, and, you know, focusing more on what you guys are going to be more interested in rather than just trying to cover everything and ultimately disappointing everybody. I think it's going to have a big, influence on the general positivity of the channel, and definitely make me a lot happier day to day, and, you know, make me a lot more motivated as well, and, you know, not feeling so burnt out. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you for watching, and yeah, I'll see you again very soon. Bye.